How to really get to know your colleagues. Well, getting to know people is something that we would seem to be doing all the time, and yet I see groups of people working together without ever really getting to know one another. This means that a group can lack the glue that will keep them together when they come under pressure. And then people get nasty. The remedy that we bring is what we call the real conversation, a chance to say what matters. So, firstly, how to make the first conversation really count, cutting out all the blah blah. Number 1, get permission. Say what you want. For example, John, I'd like to be able to work with you openly and I want to get things off to a good start. Are you up for it? 2, ask about what they want. So, John, how do you want to do this? How would you like us to operate together? And number 3, be prepared to make it a real conversation. In other words, to include the things that are normally left unsaid, mainly the feelings. Number 4, listen. Now let me be absolutely clear what I mean here. What I mean is not just listening for the facts, but listening for the feelings behind the facts. And that's where I believe the story really is. How does this sound in practice? Well, firstly, I've got to do 3 things. I've got to look out for 3 different bits of information. How the person seems to be feeling, what the feeling seems to be about, and why they seem to be having the feeling about that thing so much. And this is what it sounds like in practice. Jeremy, you don't sound too happy about coming into work early on Friday. I guess that's because it really messes up your home life. You see the pattern? Here's another example. Fiona, you seem worried that we're going to pitch at too high a price. I guess that's because you know something about these people's budgets. Number 5, avoid the extras, all the blah blah. What do I mean? Well, firstly, try to keep the conversation away from things that are about other people and other things. It's just not relevant. And secondly, and you might be surprised to hear this, keep it away from the personal stuff. Getting to know somebody is not about getting to know them personally, at least not to begin with. Getting a relationship off to a good start is about process and not content. It's all about how you're going to behave towards each other and how you're going to speak to each other. Number 6, tell the truth, even if it makes you look bad. A classic example is when we turn up to that first critical meeting and we're a few minutes late. What most people do is to talk some rot about how the train service is so bad from Epping Forest or something like that, or why the motorway was packed. Very often it just means that the person set out too late. So instead of making excuses, what I'm suggesting is that you experiment with actually saying, I just didn't leave enough time. I'm sorry. So telling the truth, even if it makes you look bad, I think is an important part in starting a relationship off really well. And by well, I mean genuinely. Now, don't worry if this conversation doesn't go completely according to plan. It's the intention that counts. It's your aim. Even if the questions that you use or the ones that I've suggested don't get you the perfect answer, it really doesn't matter. You're showing the other person that you want a different kind of conversation, a different kind of relationship, something based on the reality between you. Okay, so here are the 2 key questions to ask a new colleague. The first thing is, how do you like to be treated? Now, in asking them this, it's also going to bring out the things that they don't like, but you don't need to ask that question. It'll come out naturally. Secondly, how can I help you? In other words, what can I do for you right now that's going to make things go well? Okay, now we're on to mistakes. Here are 3 mistakes to avoid at all costs. Number 1, getting straight into the business, content as I call it. What it's really suggesting is that you have no interest in getting to know the person and that you're prepared to take potluck with them. You're going to trust a complete stranger. It says, I'm too busy to get to know you. Let's get on with things. Number 2, taking without giving back. I'm talking about going into send mode, talking and talking and talking, or pitching at the person. If necessary, force yourself to pay attention to the other person. They are the ones who really count in this conversation. They're the ones that you have to get to know. The third mistake to avoid, in my book, is getting distracted by anything else. Passing people, electronic interruptions, your own thoughts. Be absolutely ruthless about cutting out distractions. Because if you don't, what it says to the other person is, you're not as important as one of these other things. Lastly, I want to talk about how to have that first conversation again with old colleagues, people who you've already known for a long time, relatively speaking. There are 3 parts to this: the reason, empathy, and the gift. Okay, firstly, the reason. You need to tell them what the reason is that you want to change things, and secondly, what's in it for you both. Here's how it sounds. Peter, I wanted to have a conversation about how you and I operate together. I recognise that we could really do much better and not get into such hot water together if we could just find an understanding. And I really do want to work with you a lot more in future. That's going to be so much easier if we can just sort of sort out this understanding. Okay, empathy. Here's the second bit. Peter, I guess it's really difficult to work with me when I don't give you enough warning about which days I need you for and which days I don't. I know you have a really hard time managing your diary. It's very busy. I think you also find it difficult when I get bossy, which I know I can do. Thirdly, the gift. So this is where I want to show Peter that I'm serious about improving the relationship between us. So, Peter, what I'd like to try and do is firstly give you a lot more warning about which days I'm going to need you for. And secondly, I'm going to try and be a lot better at listening when I see that you're thinking something or you're unhappy about something that I've done or someone else has done. I want to give you more time to do that, to express yourself. So those are the main elements of how to really get to know your colleagues, whether you're getting to know them for the first time or whether you're having to press the reset button on one of your existing relationships. So to summarise, firstly, declare your aim. In other words, that you're pitching for an unusually real conversation and a real relationship. 2, tell the truth. It's so much more attractive than even the best constructed lie. 3, top up every time you meet. Listening with empathy isn't just the one-off at the beginning when you first meet somebody or when you first have a conversation to say, listen, I want to do things differently. Listening with empathy really is the fuel of choice for building relationships. I'm Paul Furey. Thanks for listening.